One of the most common questions I get when people watch or call me is, where should I move? A lot of nightlife super close to Washington, D.C. can definitely be a little bit more expensive. Great area if you want to be able to walk around and you don't have a car. Other common, really popular areas are going to be where I'm at. Tons of job market here, tons of jobs, things to do. This is where a lot of younger families live, places like that. And then you have just going to be the more affordable ones. One of my favorite spots over there is going to be. All right, if you were thinking about moving here to Northern Virginia, you are definitely going to want to watch this video. I want to break down the home buying process and everywhere that you should look if you are thinking about moving here. My name is Chris Colgan. I am a realtor here in Northern Virginia and the Washington, D.C. area, and I have been doing this for over 20 years. If you are thinking about buying a home, definitely email me info@colganteam.com. Now, one of the most common questions I get when people watch or call me that want to buy a house through our YouTube channel here is, where should I move? A lot of that is going to depend on your lifestyle and job, of course. Now, if you're going to be in Washington, D.C., keep in mind that is going to be a nice commute. And if you don't have a car, you're definitely going to want to consider Arlington and Alexandria. Alexandria can definitely be a little bit more expensive. It's where the Pentagon is, National Airport, super close to Washington, D.C. You can park there. You also have Metro, pretty much anything and everything, a lot of nightlife. That is going to be about 50% renters, 50% homeowners. So definitely keep that in mind. A lot of condos, but average sales price in there is around $1 million. So it can get super expensive. But again, great area if you want to be able to walk around and you don't have a car. Then you have Alexandria, which is also going to be close to Springfield, Virginia, and Old Town Alexandria. Average sales price of around $700,000. Another great place if you don't want to have a car and you are cool with walking around places. One of my favorite spots over there is going to be Old Town Alexandria. It's won all kinds of awards for being the most beautiful town in America, all simply historic. One of my favorite spots there is going to be the Spite House. It's this little blue house that someone built back in the day, so a horse and carriage couldn't go up there anymore. The house, someone actually lives there. It's a really cool spot that you should check out. Other common, really popular areas are going to be Fairfax County, where I'm at right now. Tons of job market here, tons of jobs, things to do. You've got Reston Town Center, Tyson's Corner, the Fairfax City area. Average sales price in Fairfax is going to be around $880,000, with a single family costing around $1.2 million, to condos around $500,000 to $600,000, townhomes around $700,000 to $800,000. Plenty of places to live in Fairfax, but ton of jobs. I would say most people, if you're a younger working family or professional, start in Fairfax. And then you have Loudoun County, where a lot of tech jobs are going to be, Ashburn and Leesburg area. Now that you're starting to get a lot further out from Washington, D.C. and all the hustle and bustle. This is where a lot of younger families live, places like that. And then you have Prince William County, which is going to be the more affordable one, with an average sales price of around $550,000 to $600,000. But Woodbridge, which is by 95, and the Fredericksburg area. Then you have Manassas, Gainesville, and Haymarket. Tons of jobs there as well. But keep in mind, everything and anything around Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia is going to be all about transportation. But a lot of the jobs have gone further out west to Loudoun and Prince William County. Let's talk about the home buying process in general. All right, so if you've never bought a house before, I'm definitely going to break down the whole process, because a lot of people have never done that before and they want to have a lot of questions. And it's a lot different from state to state from where you are watching or where you're coming from. So if you are thinking about buying a house, the first thing to do is obviously find a good realtor like myself. If you're watching this video, of course, shameless plug. We will do a consultation with you and walk you through the whole process. What I tell people usually first is you want to get pre-approved with a lender. Why is that? Because you want to know how much you can afford and what type of payment you are comfortable with. So let's just make up a number. Let's say you're looking at $700,000 houses, but you find out the mortgage is $4,000 a month, and that's too much that you want to spend. Then you might want to stay around $500,000. That is the first step. We can easily get you pre-approved within 1 hour, and then they will ask you for things like bank statements, 2-year tax returns, a job offer letter, things like that. Super easy to get approved. Now, the thing is, the home buying process from the time that you go under contract So the time to closing is about 30 to 45 days. So what I usually tell people is it can take a couple weeks to find a house, especially if we're in a market where there's not a lot for sale. You want to get out there, and usually people look at around 10 to 15 different houses before they make an offer. But you go out with your pre-approval, get you in the door. We go out and show you a bunch of houses. You have some private showings. A big thing that I tell people too is we can send you all the listings that are out there. So don't go on Zillow, Redfin, all the other websites. We all have the same listings. And if you do that, you're going to get called by 100 obnoxious realtors like myself, because I know, because my team does that all the time. Now, there's a couple different loans that you can do. You can either do a conventional loan, which is going to be around 10 to 20% down. Now, you have to put down about 20% if you don't want to pay mortgage insurance, which would be a couple $100 a month. Most people that do conventional loans either have a large down payment, or maybe they sold a house with some equity into it. They're about like 30 to 40% of my loans. Now, if you want to put down less money, a great loan is going to be an FHA loan. It's about 3.5% down. Any one of these programs, you're going to have closing costs associated with it, which is another 3%. We can get the seller to pay that for you though, so keep that in mind. But the down payment is one thing you will definitely have to pay. But FHA is super simple. You have to have a credit score of around 640 or better. If your credit isn't that great, we can also help you, go through it with you, and tell you what you need to do to get it approved to be able to buy. A lot of it is super simple things a lot of people wouldn't think about. So you have FHA 3.5% down, you got conventional 5, 10, 20% down. You are gonna have to do 20% if you don't want that mortgage insurance. Now, the next thing, which is very common here in Washington, D.C., is going to be a VA loan. If you were in the military, you qualify for that. That is no money down. We can get your closing costs paid. You can literally come buy a house and it won't cost you any money. So that's 0% down, and you can call the VA and see if you qualify for that. They'll give you a letter that says you are approved. Super simple loans. We do those all the time. There's another loan called a USDA, which is through the Agriculture Department. You do not need any money down for that as well, but keep in mind, certain areas do not qualify for that. So it has to be a more rural area. So like Arlington, Fairfax, parts of Loudoun, Prince William, Alexandria might not qualify, but we do those all the time. Areas that usually qualifies is going to be like a Front Royal, Virginia, Culpeper, Winchester, places like that. Those loans can take a little bit longer though to close, so definitely keep that in mind. A lot of people hit me up and say, is there any special grants, or I'm a first-time home buyer? There is one here in the state of Virginia called a VHDA, but keep in mind the rate is not going to be that good on that, so I don't usually recommend those, and you end up paying more money, but you can get away with zero down. But other than that, there's not very many special loan programs or anything like that. Now, let's say what happens, right? We go out, we find you the dream home, we end up writing an offer. What happens from there? Your contract gets ratified, and then usually we put in a home inspection. So how it works in Virginia, we can either ask for you to be able to do repairs, you can just walk away, or you can just waive one. So if it's a really popular house or like it's brand new, a lot of people will just not do one. But keep in mind, let's say you go into the house and the roof's bad, or maybe the foundation's cracked and you want to just walk away. No problem, you walk away, you get your deposit back, and that's why that contingency is built in there. We also almost always put in a financing contingency. That helps you out with an appraisal or your loan. So let's say the lender says 2 weeks from now, hey, we didn't realize this and you can't buy. You're also able to walk away from that. Typically, we put about a 24-day financing contingency period to help you out as well. And then you close within a week or two. After that, you can actually go to closing and then be in your house that same day. Now, all of these loans, there's not really one that's very common here in Northern Virginia. Everyone uses pretty much all these different loans. But let me answer a few other questions that you might have. All right, so I'm sitting here with the camera crew here. Like, I know this is the most overly produced, like we're filming Jurassic Park over here or something, like I'm on CNN, but guess what? They had some good questions that I didn't even think of. So you probably heard there was a big lawsuit with the realtors and you have to sign an agreement. Basically, you do have to sign an agreement for us to be able to show you a house. You can cancel anytime on the ones that we do. But guess what? We put in there that, hey, you understand we're going to make a commission and we're going to ask the seller to pay for it. All of that is upfront in writing. And that's why it's really good to do a consultation as well. One of the other questions they were asking me was, should you waive a home inspection ever, or is that a good idea? What about appraisal? So here's the problem, right? Let's say it's a house, it's $500,000, and it's very popular. My brother just went into an open house, and the lady said that she had 7 offers on the place, right? So people probably are going to waive a home inspection in that case. Is it a good idea? Not always. I don't recommend that you do it, obviously, but if it's like a brand new house and you walk around and look, you can definitely tell. But the big thing you got to keep in mind is if a roof is a lot older, then it's going to be hard to get insurance, especially if it's 10 years or older. But in Virginia, we don't really have too many crazy things happening. Now, we did have an earthquake like 15 years ago, but we don't really have many foundation issues, things like that. But if the house was on like well and septic, which is common around here, I would definitely never recommend not buying a house without getting that tested out, because those can be a ton of money. But if you do waive the inspection and you don't like what you see, maybe down the road, there's not much you can do, because in Virginia, it's a disclosure state where the seller can't be liable as long as they never told you about anything they didn't know about. So that's why I'd say at least do the one where you can just walk away and say, hey, you know what? If I do an inspection within 5 days and I don't like the results, I can walk away, Mr. Seller, and I don't have to ask you for any repairs or anything like that. One of the other questions they were asking me were like about the metro system and transportation around here. I will tell you, most people around here have a car. It is very hard to get around Northern Virginia without a car. If you absolutely didn't want to have a car, you're definitely going to be close to Arlington and Alexandria. The metro does go all the way out to Ashburn, Virginia, and then parts of Springfield, Virginia. One of the other things I like to tell people who are thinking about moving here, and they look on a map and they go, hey, Fredericksburg, Virginia looks really good. It looks really affordable. Keep in mind the traffic there can be very brutal. The same with pretty much anywhere here in Northern Virginia. The best advice I can tell you is if you are thinking about buying a house, you definitely want a real estate agent. I know I'm one and I'm trying to sell you on that. We definitely want a real estate agent that knows what they're doing, because you're going to have to sit down and get all these questions answered and get a roadmap going. If it was me and I was the first time home buyer buying my very first place, what I would do is I would definitely buy a house within Northern Virginia, whether it was a condo or a townhome, and I would plan on keeping it as a rental. So you buy that one, right? Then you rent it out after living there for 2 or 3 years, you get married and you go buy the next one, you keep that as a rental property, and you kind of keep doing the same thing. That's what I did. My very first house was a tiny condo in Manassas. I kept it as a rental for like 8 years. That would definitely be the path that I would go down. Now, keep in mind, though, Northern Virginia is so expensive. It's not really a great place to do Airbnb or go out and rent properties. One other question that you might be asking is, where is like a place that might be a little bit cheaper and you don't mind a commute? I would definitely consider Front Royal, Virginia. You've got the beautiful mountains, wineries, breweries. Average sales price of only about $375,000, but it is an hour-long commute from there into Northern Virginia. Another place a lot of people check out is Culpeper, Virginia. Beautiful old town, average sales price of around $350,000, close to Lake Anna, Virginia, but that does get pretty far out. And then the fastest growing city in all of Virginia is going to be Winchester, Virginia. Average sales price of around $425,000, but you have the beautiful downtown Winchester, all the amenities of it, tons of new construction. A lot of people are moving out from Loudoun County to Winchester as well. Now, another common question you might think of is like, what about schools? As a realtor, I'm not allowed to really give advice on schools. The biggest thing I tell people is most of the schools around Northern Virginia are brand new, because most of the houses are brand new. The best website to go on is going to be niche.com. The other thing is they change the boundaries here all the time for the schools. So you want to call the school system and make sure your kid's not going to one high school, and then they change the boundary, and then 2 years later they're at a new school. So definitely call the school system, see what the schools are like, go check out the schools, do your own research. We also have plenty of colleges, universities around here like George Mason, Virginia Tech, Northern Virginia Community College. I think it's like the second biggest community college system in all of the United States. Another great question from this beautiful camera crew here is, what about homeowner associations? That's a really good question. They are very common around here. Some of them, the person literally walks around like they're the president of the United States, and they can be really expensive. And you've got all kinds of amenities, though, that they pay for, whether it's trash collection, helping you keep the courtyards clean, all the different things, the amenities. If you have a pool, golf course, it's going to get pretty expensive. This is what I like about HOAs, though. They definitely keep the home values up, right? Because they dictate if the person puts a crazy Camaro in the front yard on blocks and they're out there listening to 1980s rock, or if somebody paints their door a different color. But keep in mind, if you have like a work truck or a truck with lettering on it, the HOA is probably not going to let you park there. In Virginia, though, a cool thing about this state is by law, you have 3 days to look at the homeowners association rules. And if for some reason you don't like them, you do not have to buy the house as long as you back out within that 3 days. So it is a good get out of jail free card for sure. Now, if you don't like HOAs, we have plenty of areas without HOAs here, especially if you are looking for a place with land. He asked me earlier about, hey, you know what? What if I want to have cows? Definitely not common here in Northern Virginia. If you want to have horses, though, you are at least going to need 5 to 10 acres at least. You're talking Nokesville to maybe Western Loudoun County. So definitely keep that in mind. There's a lot of rules that go around with that. I actually do think HOAs are good. Like where mine is, the fee is only $70 a month, but it includes my trash. It includes a couple other amenities. They keep the tot lots nice and clean, and they make sure the crazy neighbor doesn't paint his door pink, and there's all kinds of things going on. So I do like it in that sense, but definitely, you know what, just keep in mind, if you're someone who does not like HOAs, you're probably going to have to move further out than Northern Virginia. So a good question that you might want to think about, and a lot of times if you go on some of these web calculators, things like that, they're going to give you bad numbers. So keep in mind, you're going to have to pay closing costs when you are buying a house. Typically, that costs about 3%. So if it's a $500,000 house, you're talking $15,000. Now that doesn't cover that's just the lender fees that are associated with it. So definitely keep that in mind. Now you can ask the seller to cover that whole thing for you. What I tell a lot of people is if it's a really popular house, you might want to offer $515,000 and it's listed for $500,000 and say, hey, give me $15,000 in closing costs, because the seller still gets what they want, and it's also covered by your appraisal because you are going to have an appraisal. So if it doesn't appraise for the $515,000, you do not have to buy it. Now keep in mind though, most sellers will not just pay them out front, but I am seeing about half the clients now give away closing costs, so you can get that completely covered. There are some special programs where the closing costs can be a lot lower, but your interest rate is going to be higher, so the lender will get that money back in the monthly payment somehow or another. So closing costs definitely are part of the deal, but 90% of the time, if we do put in a really strong offer with good terms, I can get the seller to pay those for you. All right, so I appreciate you guys watching this video. If you want to work with me and my team, we handle pretty much the whole area around here. Email me info@colganteam.com. Definitely subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Instagram at Chris Colgan Team. We are always talking about the DMV, Northern Virginia, real estate, things coming to the area, what's popping in the market. So I always talk about all of that. And like I said, email me anytime, info@colganteam.com. Definitely subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Shame on you. Shame on you. Guys, I'll see you at the top or from the top.